I wanted to share a quick video. This one is not going to be too long. I've tried to do some pre-planning here. But this is a great combination. It uses 4 glazes. It uses Obsidian, C1, Celadon. It uses Smoky Merlot, which is Potter's Choice 57. It uses Indigo Float, Potter's Choice 23. And it's going to use Seaweed at the very end, which is your Potter's Choice 42. And these 3 or 4 glazes come out with a really cool combination. Some people call it, I think it's Northern Lights or something like that. But I've used it on multiple occasions, and I want to just show you this mug, just a little mug. This has 3 coats of Obsidian, and I've put this on inside and out. And then all you're going to do with this is you're going to start with your Smoky Merlot, which is a really nice burgundy glaze, and you're going to start around the middle here. Try not to let it drip too much, but you want a nice coating. And this is going to, because of the dried Obsidian already, it's going to dry pretty quick. We may hit it with a heat gun here just a little bit, but I want to just keep layering this on. You can see how she's starting to dry already. That little drip will just give us some real pretty effects. It is Friday afternoon here in Arkansas. And somebody needs to tell Autumn that it's not summer anymore, because we're really warm. Gonna be up in the 80s today. My wife and I bought an old Jeep this summer, which she lets me drive once in a while. And she's out with the grandkids right now, picked them up from school. They'll pop the top back and they'll just have a blast. And I'm ready for it to be nice and cold, because that's kind of my time of year. But I know a lot of the country is warm, and we're all kind of looking for if you can see this, I want to show you, I've kind of laid this heavy. If you can see those kind of sags, that's just going to make this run more when we get the rest of the glazes on there. So don't be afraid to put this on a little thick. And I'm going to hit this with a heat gun just a little bit, so bear with me. Okay, so we've got that fairly well dried up, and you can see how my thick parts have kind of left some drips there, and we're going to get some real pretty runs out of that. So now we're going to move on, and we're going to do the Indigo Float. And Indigo Float is a real thin glaze. It's kind of watery, a lot like Seaweed if you've used either one of these. So you got to work with it when you're putting it on so it doesn't just drip to death. So I'm curious if there are any Jeep people out there. I started to say drip, but this is starting to drip on me real quick because it's so thin. Wonder if any of y'all are Jeepers. I haven't had anything like a Jeep since I had an old FJ40 Toyota Land Cruiser back in my 20s. And I love that feel and ride. And when we bought this Jeep this summer, I thought, man, that sure makes me think of my old Land Cruiser, the way that it, just the stiff suspension and the bounce and riding up a little bit higher. And it's been fun. Like I say, nobody has enjoyed it more than my wife and the grandkids. It's just a little 2-door JK 2011. Now I'm getting some real runs in here. Let this one get away from me in this Indigo Float, and I'm gonna wipe it up just a little bit because I don't want it to be too far down there. This will dry real quick because it'll dry real quick because it's so thin. A lot of times when I'm doing these that are thin like this, I'll just pick it up and turn it sideways. You can see what I'm doing here like this, and that kind of keeps it, lets it dry in a little bit before it starts to run on me. And I've probably put water in this Indigo Float at some time. It seems like it's just really thin, thinner than what I would even anticipate for Indigo Float. So I'll make sure I get a couple of coats on here, at least 2 or 3. But this is, I've used this glaze on different pieces. It looks really good. I've started making olive oil bottles. And I have not finished one yet. I have several that will go in the glaze kiln this week. I had a friend that hit me up, and she was traveling in France and Italy, and she came back with some fresh olive oil from those regions, and I had made some other kitchen utensils for her at request, and so she kind of wanted an olive oil bottle that would match. And I've never made one, so I always love a challenge to do something I haven't done before. I think that's one of the beauties of pottery, and I hope you guys are taking those opportunities to push yourself to try new things, even if you have to just do it over and over and throw it back in the bag when it's done, and then try it until you get it the way you want it. So much of pottery is just experience over knowledge, I think. You learn how it's supposed to be done, but then to get that muscle memory, to get the muscle memory in here of throwing and getting that clay to do what you want, when you want, that's a challenge. All right, so I've got this. We've got Smoky Merlot. We've got Indigo Float here. And I'm going to dry this up real quick, and we're going to move on to the last one, which is going to be our seaweed. So bear with me here one more time. Okay, we've got that all dried up. And you can see, other than this one little drip, which will probably just kind of fade away on me as it goes. Then we're going to hit this with some seaweed. And seaweed is thin, and seaweed will run. So typically, if I'm using seaweed, I'm not going to get too close to the bottom with it. Because I really don't want a mug that's stuck to the kiln shelf. But I also want enough of this to really make those glazes move. And I'll tell you a story while I'm doing this. We did have a lot of Jeeps in our family. When the boys were growing up, we had 4 boys. And they had Jeep Cherokees that they drove in high school. Some of these old, what were they, XJs or something like that, the great little rigs. And we were always working on them. Their friends would come over and we'd put lifts on them and modify them and do some really neat stuff to them. And, you know, they were pretty flawless. Of course, one of our boys put one in a creek. And I mean, to the point where the water came up to his dash. So he did continue to drive it after we got it dried out, but he had to have a few things like electric window motors and different things. It was never the same, I'll tell you that. But one of his friends came over after we were doing all these lift kits on Jeeps, and he had a Nissan Sentra. And he knew I worked on stuff for the boys, and he wanted me to lower it. But the problem was, he was going to go see his dad, who I don't know how much time he had ever seen before. He was in high school, so I know he didn't live with his father. But his father lived in Alaska, and he wanted me to lower his Nissan Sentra. And I'm like, dude, I'm not sure that's a really good idea for where you're headed. And he was driving from Arkansas to Alaska and everything in between. And having a Sentra that was 6 inches from the ground, I just don't know was the best idea. But we did it, we lowered it, and he was happy and he was grateful, and he was a great kid, and I'm glad it worked out for him. But I never heard any more about his trip or how that went, that drive with a lowered Sentra heading to Alaska from Arkansas. Who knows? Maybe he's still stuck in a ditch somewhere today. So, but that's really all we've got here. You got a black mug with Obsidian. You got some layers here of Smoky Merlot, layers of Indigo Float, and then you top coat with that Seaweed, and you can see how she's starting to run here, but you will see that when this dries up. I have a finished product here to share with you. This is really what you get. Get some real nice lace down in here. Get some nice blues and greens. The Smoky Merlot kind of turns into a purple in there, if you can get that. But it's gorgeous. It's really neat. I'm using that on one of these olive oil bottles. Some of the stuff like this that I'm getting ready to do, these little bottles like this with a handle on them, it'll just be pourable. And I've got some, picked up some of these from Amazon, really cheap, to just pop in the top when they're done. And ought to work out real nice. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. I appreciate your comments. Would love to hear about your Jeeps, if you've got Jeeps. Ours is just a little black one with red interior that's been modified a little bit, and we run around in it, and I'll try to throw a picture of it out there sometime for you. Please like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.